Ben,
Jacob,
how you doing?
good. How are you?
Good. We are getting closer and closer to that dreaded episode 25.
I've not looked at it yet. I want to be completely surprised.
You want to go first or should I go first?
Go for it.
Ahuvai achai vere'ai, my beloved, my brethren, my friends. Ahava mesuteret tochachat megula. It is out of a hidden love that comes a revealed, overt rebuke. Lechuna v'nivachcha. Come now and let us debate. This is Job. No, Isaiah. Okay. God calls us to the mat, as it were. Zichru yamot olam binu shenot dor vador. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of every generation. Hehaita kazot miyamot olam. Has such a thing ever happened? Va'aye eifo matzatem minhag ze be'echad mikol sifrei chachmei Israel harishonim va'achronim. Who has ever seen such a thing? God have mercy upon us. Lihyot minhag v'tikun lish'ol be'etza gashmiut kedat ma la'asot b'inyanei ha'olam hagashmi. That it should be the custom and established norm to ask for advice in mundane matters as to one ought to do in matters of the physical world. So now I am remembering which particular Chabad idea this particular epistle goes towards. So this is one of the differences between Chabad and what in Chabad is sometimes referred to as Chagat Chasidut. Chagat referring to Chabad is Chochma Bina Da'at. Chagat is Chesed Gevura Tiferet. And the Poilisha, the more Polish Hasidic groups the rabbis in those groups tend to get involved in the mundane matters of the Hasidim in much more involved ways than the Alter Rebbe taught Chabad to do.
Interesting. What? Give an example.
Sure. So if you want to start a business, it would be a normal thing in a Polish Hasidic dynasty to first ask the Rebbe for a blessing or something like that, and expect some sort of like he's putting it, Tikun lish'ol be'etza gashmiut kedat ma la'asot be'inyanei ha'olam hagashmi. And generally, when it came to worldly matters, while obviously the Rebbe would give people blessings, it is not the norm, and it was not the norm in Chabad to expect the Rebbe to get involved. Now, he sometimes did, in fact, when I would say, and Chabad philosophy would say, the Rebbe saw that there was a spiritual matter involved, but generally, those things that are more physical and material, it was not as much among So Chabad, it's funny, but in certain respects has always been described more as a Litvish, as a Lithuanian Hasidic tradition, um, in certain ways, and this would be one of them.
You see, I was gonna say that it kind of sounds like at least one of the broad tenets that I remember differentiate um, original like modern Orthodox, maybe how maybe Soloveitchik saw that, or like the people that founded or sort of founded that movement, which is not being dependent on a Rebbe to a certain. Obviously, you're dependent on the Rebbe spiritually, and even more so in Chabad, but that allowing the people to go out on their own and conquer the land sounds like something more from that perspective as well.
Right. So, I mean, really, in a more Lithuanian and certainly modern Orthodox way, generally each individual is expected, even though, I mean, this is one of the ways in which Das Torah is Das Torah is how it's referred to in modern yeshivish circles. To it's one of the ways in which it's become more Hasidic, modern day yeshivish circles, I would say. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Chabad kind of always. I mean, you see here, this is a letter of the Alter Rebbe already, where he's kind of distinguishing between how a chassid, through hitkashrut with a Rebbe, would have a spiritual connection, but I mean, we'll read the rest of the letter. But he's saying, this is not the way to ask about physical matters.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Af legadolei chachmei Israel harishonim ketanaim ve'amoraim. Right, so we're talking all the way to the time of the sages of the Mishnah and the Talmud. Asher kol raz lo anes lahu. That all of the secrets were not were not hidden from them. Unehirin lahon shvilin derakia, and for whom all the paths of heaven were clearly illuminated. Ki'im leneviim mamash asher hayu lefanim beIsrael kishmuel haroeh, right? But only of actual prophets who used to live among the Israel, like Samuel the seer. Asher halach alav Shaul lidrosh Hashem al davar ha'atonot shene'evdu la'aviv. Right? So he's saying this is something that was only of actual Nevi'im.
Right.
Why indeed were sages of stature such as the Tanaim and Amoraim not asked about mundane matters? Ki be'emet kol inyanei adam levad medivrei Torah ve'yirat shamayim einan musagim rak benevuah. So he's saying that to truly understand what is happening to a person, it can only be understood, apprehended through prophecy. The lo chachamim lechem, as the verse states in Ecclesiastes, there is no bread unto the wise. K'ma'amar Rabbeinu zichronam lebracha, as the sages taught, Hakol b'dei shamayim chutz miyirat shamayim, everything is under the sovereign hands of God, except for our fear of God. That is what we have a capacity to control. Everything else belongs to God Himself. ושבעה דברים מכוסים חולו אין אדם יודע במה יסתחר ומלכות בית דוד מתי תחזור. Likewise, it says in Pesachim 54b, 7 things are hidden. No man knows how he will earn his living, nor when the kingdom of David will be restored. That is the Mashiach. Hine hushuvu ze lazet. They equated these two things, the coming of the Messiah and how a person would earn his living. ומה שכתוב בישעיה, יועץ וחכם החרשים, a counselor and a man whose wisdom silences all, suggesting that Torah wisdom qualifies one to advise in other fields as well. לכן מה שאמרו רבותינו זכרונם לברכה, ונהנין ממנו עצה ותושייה. Also, as the sages said regarding one who studies Torah for its own sake, that people derive from him the benefit of counsel and wisdom. Hayinu b'divrei Torah hanikrat tushia. He is explaining that this only refers to matters of the Torah itself, which is referred to as tushia, assistance. כמאמר רבותינו זכרונם לברכה, יועץ זה שיודע לעבר שנים ולקבוע חדשים. So, as the sages taught, a counselor is one who knows how to intercalate years, making certain years leap years with an additional adar, and how to determine the months, which day is Rosh Chodesh. שסוד העיבור קרוי עצה וסוד בלשון תורה כדאיתא בסנהדרין דף פ"ז עין שם בפירוש רש"י. And so this counsel is referring specifically to the calendar, and by extension I would say here it's referring only to spiritual matters. Ach ha'emet agid lashom'im li, I will tell the truth to those who are willing to listen. Ki ahava mekalkelet hashura, v'hinei hi chasut einayim shelo lirot ha'emet. Love upsets the natural order of conduct, for it is a covering of the eyes that prevents people from seeing the truth. The Alter Rebbe is quick to insist that the listener's love for the life of the body is no doubt motivated by a spiritual purpose. Nevertheless, they become so enmeshed in this love that they soon come to love the life of the body for its own sake as well. This latter love upsets the natural order to the point that it drives people to seek advice on material matters.
Didn't you tell me that there's a quote, maybe it's the Alter Rebbe, that he sort of complains about his Bachurim, about his Hasidim, that they bother him all the time? They don't give him time for other things? I think there is some
I
Rebbe that was talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there are stories about all the Rebbeim to some extent saying such things, but there was definitely a certain distance that the Rabbanim of Chabad kept from the Hasidim, which is certainly very different from what sometimes in Chabad is referred to as the Rebelach, the small Polish. So there are a lot of very small Polish Hasidic dynasties, like very small, and to the point where like there's a Rebbe for I mean, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 families, right? Then there are larger Hasidic communities. In the small communities, I mean, it's nice. You have a Rebbe who's involved in your personal life on a almost daily matter. He knows you personally. Gets. I mean, when I was in Jerusalem, I used to on Thursday nights go to a shiur given by um, a rabbi who was from Hornsteipel, right?
Stipler.
And what?
The Stipler. Like that's
Well,
related.
it is related to the Steipler, right?
Mhm.
But so Hornsteipel, right? So this he was obviously an incredible person, and his shiurim were great. And there would be 10, maybe at most, sometimes 15, 20 people around the table, right? That was, and he knew each of us, and he would talk to each of us individually. It was very nice.
Interesting. It kind of actually it reminds me of a very surreal experience that I had a long time ago back in New York. It's kind of very odd um, backstory, but basically, my grandparents are buried on my mom's side. Are buried in Romania. They're buried in a Sephardic cemetery,
Right.
and there's not a lot of Sephardic Jews left in Bucharest, if at all. So nobody maintains it. So anyway, somehow my mom got me to talk to a head of a rabbi in the Bukharian community in New
Mhm.
York.
Okay.
So I went to his office.
Right.
I think it was his office, and it really was like this was a long time ago, so I was like very much did not know anything about anything more so than now. But anyway, and I walk in there. Um, First of all, I felt very much like the Godfather. Like there, like there was it was small, but it was a whole like a waiting hall kind of thing.
Yeah.
Chairs, and on the walls there were all the insignia of the different tribes. And I
Okay.
remember when I saw that, I remember thinking, "Whoa, this feels like I know that these tribes exist, and I know the words and all that kind of stuff. But when I see it like that, it makes me feel like about like, whoa, there was really history behind this. Like this guy and this here represents a lot of history. But anyway, I was waiting in that waiting space, and again felt very much like the Godfather. And then I waited, and then somebody else came from the rabbi's room. He was talking to them, dealing probably with something like a personal matter, and then he brought me in and we discussed it. Anyway, and that felt like again like somebody like a classic rabbi Godfather, where he people come to see him, ask him questions, and all that stuff. And it was like my first experience, sort of, with something like that. So it's interesting to think back on that.
Okay. Yeah. So quickly, the Alter Rebbe here is kind of doing a limud zchut. He's
Mhm.
saying, obviously, these people, merov ahavam l'chayei haguf l'shem shamayim la'avod bo et Hashem berishpei esh v'shalhevet gedola ma'avat nafsham et Hashem, because they love God so much they want to serve Him with their bodies as well. ועל כן היטב חרה להם בצער הגוף חס ושלום Hashem ירחם, right? They are extremely irate when their body undergoes suffering, heaven forfend, right? May God have compassion on them. ואין יכולים לקבל כלל עד שמעבירם על דעתם לחטט לרגליהם עיר לעיר לשאול עצות מרחוק. Thus, they are not able to bear it at all, to the point that it drives them out of their mind, causing them to tramp from about from city to city to seek advice from afar, right? But why indeed does God cause suffering? Moreover, how are we to respond to life's difficulties if it is not proper to seek advice on them from Torah sages and tzaddikim? The Alter Rebbe goes on to explain, "Velo sha'u el Hashem lashuv alav beruach nemucha v'hachna'at haguf." Those who seek merely to be rid of their physical afflictions are not following the proper path of the Torah, for in doing so, they do not turn to God by penitently returning to Him with a humble spirit and submission of the body. L'kabel tochachto ba'ahava ki et asher ya'ahav Hashem yochiach. Right? To accept His chastisement with love, for it is Him whom God loves that He chastises, right? So he's saying, rather than going from city to city trying to find this Rebbe or that Rebbe to give you this tikkun or that tikkun, you have to turn towards God, search your spirituality, see why God is chastising you and what He wants from you.
Right, do some ishtadlut, do some ground, like do something on your own, try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uchamo av rachman chacham v'tzadik hamakeh beno. Right? When you have a father who's compassionate, wise, and righteous, and he takes a belt to his son. שאין לבן חכם להפוך עורף לנוס למצוא לו עזרה או אפילו מליץ יושר לפני אביו הרחמן והצדיק והחסיד. Right? When he realizes that his father is acting wisely and doing this out of his compassion, rather than trying to flee or find a way to get away, or find somebody to get his father not to give him the patches, right? He understands. This is, let's see what it says. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the Frierdiker Rebbe, once remarked that when the Alter Rebbe first speaks of the father who punishes, he does not use the term Hasid. He uses it only later in the context of the intercessor. The reason, says the Rebbe, is that a father who smites his child may indeed be compassionate, righteous, and wise, but he is not a Hasid, for a Hasid does not hit. In any event, we see that if the child is truly wise, he will not flee from punishment. Rak lihiyot Yashar Yechazu Fanemo. Rather, he will look straight at his father's face. Im Aviv Panim Befanim, face to face with his father. Lispol Hakaotav Ba'ahava Letov Lo Kol Hayamim.
This reminds me of some of the things that I've listened to on Tisha B'Av, and seeing it almost like a punishment, and taking the punishment with the understanding of what it is trying to point towards. Sometimes, like I do, like sometimes I have with my wife. There's sometimes I say something and it's it's not sensitive enough, or I just say it not nicely. And one of the things that I want to tell her when she does get offended is like, that I'm not trying to offend you, right? Like, I'm not trying to hurt you. So why, like, I think about this, so it's, so it's like it's a perspective that obviously is hard you can have with God, that sometimes you feel there's punishment, but if you can hold it in your understand and embody the fact that there's a reason for the punishment. Maybe there's a reason for the punishment. Or there is a reason. If you can see it, then it'll allow you to
I have to say you also have to be careful. Obviously, there's also the whole thing of Job and right. Ain biyadenu lo shalvat
Right.
rishaim, right? Um, so it's not clear, but kishem shemavarchim al tov ken mavarchim al hara, right? In a similar manner as we accept and bless and thank God for the good that is in our lives. Similarly, we have to recognize that everything comes from God, and all of the bad things. I mean, you were talking about Tisha B'Av, so uh,
Hmm.
one of the Tisha B'Av programs that they had, um, there's this woman. Actually, I believe, yeah, they're from Los Angeles,
Hmm.
and so they had a baby boy, and then their next children, they had four. In total, they had 8 children. Four of those children had a rare genetic disease that they all died as babies,
Hmm. Yeah.
and which was a horrible thing that they went through.
Yeah.
And then the week a couple of weeks before the wedding of their oldest son, he was 23 years old. He drowned in a freak accident, right? And so she lost her fifth child, right?
Yeah.
And for her, like that was a whole other thing, right?
Hmm.
She's like, and to accept that, to say, okay, so out of 8 children, she lost 4 babies, and then she raised a son to the point where they had arranged the wedding ceremony, and they had planned the wedding, and they had his funeral,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And she's written a book. I mean, after hearing the whole thing, I want to read the book now. But yeah, it's like for a child, you say Baruch Dayan Emet B'Shem U'Malchut, right? It's for the seven relatives that you say Baruch Dayan Emet B'Shem U'Malchut. Usually, you hear somebody dies, you say Baruch you say Baruch Dayan Emet, but for the seven relatives, mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, and spouse, um, as soon as you bury them,
Hmm.
you tear kriya, you tear your upper clothing,
Yeah.
and you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Dayan HaEmet, right?
Right. So you used the name.
Yeah, with Shem Al Malchut, with the Tetragrammaton. Well, Shem Adnut, obviously we don't say the Tetragrammaton, and you Melech HaOlam, right? Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. Um, you know, and to say that bracha, and that is the famous bracha that you are commanded to say the bracha besimcha,
Hmm.
to have joy from saying the bracha. How you have joy from saying that bracha, that no parent should ever have to bury their child.
Yeah.
Um, and they buried 5 children.
Yeah. I had a conversation with friends from Israel, and they visited their close friends who are religious. Like the friends that I spoke to are more secular, and their friends are religious. Um, and we were talking about and these other friends, their son died in the war, and or were killed in the war. And they were talking about how one of the parents, I think it was the mother, was really was was really already in the she like shiva, and right after like it happened, was already like really had, like you said, about like um showing this full understanding of like, I understand why this happened, or I like having like having this reaction that for them is like, aren't you supposed to be sad right now? Like, aren't you like, why are you so understanding of like what happened to your son? Like, how, like, so we're trying to figure out and ask the questions, also ask the question also in terms of like, in Judaism, are you supposed to feel the pain to be sad? Is it, or because everything is ordained and for a reason, are you just supposed to say, well, I know, like, so that was a question that we were going back and forth, and it's tough to, I don't know.
I mean, you certainly you should feel your sadness. The your sadness is your sadness, and you should definitely feel your sadness.
Yeah.
At the same time, I mean, and mourning is important. At the same time, there's a difference between other forms of joy, right? Sason, right? There's many words.
Right.
Baruch Hashem, the Hebrew language has a lot of words for happiness, right? Simcha is you know, Ezahu Asher has sameach bechelko, who is wealthy, one who is happy, one who is sameach with what he has, right? So I'll tell you a famous story of Reb Zusha of Anipol.
Mm-hmm.
Reb Zusha was one of the most famous students of the Maggid of Mezrich, who was the main student, the most prominent student of the Baal Shem Tov. And a chassid went to the Maggid, and he said to him, Rabbi, I don't know how to be how to be grateful and accept God's judgments upon me, the difficult things in my life, with happiness and accept them. And so the Maggid told him, go ask Reb Zusha. So this man goes to Anipoli to ask Reb Zusha. Now Reb Zusha, unlike his brother, the Rebbe Reb Melech, was very, very poor. And it was known that his wife was very harsh and oftentimes very critical of him. And so this man goes to Anipoli, and apparently it was raining that day. And he goes to the home of Reb Zusha, and the children are all dressed very poorly, and the children are crying, and his wife is yelling at him, and it's raining, and the rain is coming in through holes in the roof, and Reb Zusha is there, and this guy says to Reb Zusha, I came to ask you how to accept the difficulties in life, right?
Yeah.
And Reb Zusha says, why did you come to ask me? He says, the Maggid told me to come ask you. Reb Zusha thinks about it for a while. He says, I don't understand it. Why would he ask me? I've never had any difficult things in my life. So that was Reb Zusha. But Sameach Bechalko, right? When you're talking Bechalko, right? Ezehu Ashir Sameach Bechalko. That simcha is a level of contentment.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe the best way of translating simcha is actually contentment, right? Of accepting things as they are, right?
Right. It's almost like it makes me think about shalom. I don't know if they're related, but I mean the idea of full circle. Contentment is something is done,
Mm.
is complete. So it's almost like whatever happened happened. It's complete. Not complete in terms of perfect.
Yeah.
But just it's what we have.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, weiter. So, v'hinei lamala b'chinat panim, and now he's going to explain this concept of panim, of inward, of face. Hu haratzon v'hacheshek. That is the willingness and desire. Asher avinu shebashamayim mashpia lebanav kol tov olamim v'chaye nefesh v'guf. Right? With which our Father in heaven bestows upon his children all the good of the world, the physical and spiritual worlds, as well as life for the soul and the body. Ba'ahava v'ratzon, out of his love and his willingness, right? Hashika v'chafitza, out of inner desire and delight. Al yedei Torat Chayim shehi retzono yitbarach asher natan lanu. Right? Through the Torah of life, which is his blessed will that he gave unto us. Moshe Omrim, ki or beor panecha natata lanu Torat Chayim. Right? Like we say in the prayers, for in the light of your face, beor panecha, you gave us the Torah of life. La'asot ba retzono, right? Through which we have this ability to make God's will active in this world. And of this it is written in Proverbs, for in the light of the king's face there is life and his will. מה שאין כן לעובדי גילולים משפיע חיי גופם שלו ברצון וחשיקה וחפיצה, which is not true of those who serve gilulim, literally the constellations, right? He grants them goodness, as it were, over his shoulder, right? As someone who throws something to somebody he doesn't like, right? Not by looking towards them, but looking away. Lekach nikraim Elohim acherim. Therefore, these they are referred to as other gods. Shiyonkim mebichinat achorayim. That they draw their life force from the back, as it were, the hinder side of divinity. וכך הוא באדם הרצון והחשק הוא בחינת פנים. Similarly, in a human, right? Those things that he wants and he desires, those are things which he turns towards, right? Face. ואם אינו מקבל באהבה ורצון, כאילו הופך עורף לאחור חס ושלום. Right? It's as if he's turning his neck and his back on them. God have mercy. ועצה הייעוצה לקבל באהבה היא עצת השם בפי חכמנו זכרונם לברכה לפשפש במעשיו. the suggested advice to enable one to accept it with love is God's counsel through the mouth of our sages of blessed memory to examine one's conduct. When someone sees that bad things are happening, he should examine his conduct and see how he can improve. וימצא לו עוונות הצריכים מירוק ייסורי, ויראה לעין גודל אהבתו אליו המקלקלת השורה. He will find sins that require scouring by means of suffering. He will then clearly see God's great love towards him, which upsets the natural order of divine conduct, because obviously God wishes to give us things easily and joyfully, but it's our sins which change that. כמשל מלך גדול ונורא הרוחץ בכבודו ועצמו צועת בנו יחידו מרוב אהבתו. In the similar manner that you have a great king and his little baby is covered with all manner of uncleanliness, and he washes the baby himself.
Interesting. This is the same idea and same quote from Kabbalah Forgiveness when he talks about the attributes of mercy, God's attributes of mercy, and how Cordovero, the Ramak, talks about it. He uses this quote to talk about but the king bathing his son.
כמו שכתוב אם רחץ השם צועת בנות ציון חולו ברוח משפט. As it is written, is this Isaiah? Yeah. When God will wash off the filth from the daughters of Zion with a spirit of justice. וכמים מהפנים אל פנים, and just like as reflecting pool reflects a person's face, similarly, the heart reflects people's love. התעורר אהבה בלב כל משכיל ומבין יקר מהות אהבת השם אל התחתונים. There will be an arousal of love in the heart of everyone who perceives and understands the preciousness of the nature of God's love for the nether beings, for those who find themselves in the world, the lowest of all worlds. Asher hi yekara v'tova mikol chaye ha'olamim kulam. This divine love is dearer and better than all the kinds of life of all the worlds, both spiritual and material. Kamo shekatuv ma yakar chastecha. It says, how precious is your loving kindness. Kitov chastecha mechayim. Right? Your loving kindness is greater than life itself. Ki hachesed shehu bechinat ahava. Because chesed, loving kindness, is a manifestation of love. Hu chaye hachayim shebachol ha'olamot, kemo she'omrim, mechalkel chayim bechesed. Right? That is that which gives life to all of the worlds, like we say in the prayers again. Right. He sustains life with his loving kindness. Va'az, gam Hashem yiten hatov, and so forth. God too will grant goodness. V'ya'er panav elav, and he will turn his face towards him. V'bechinat ahava megula, through a revealed love. Asher hayta tchila melubeshet umesuteret betochacha megula, right? That this love, which is supposed to be revealed and manifest, was first hidden within the rebuke. V'yitmatku hagavurot beshorshan, and the expressions of severity will be sweetened in their very source. V'yitbaltlu hadinim netzach sela va'ed, and thereby these expressions of divine severity will become nullified forevermore.
So this is what's the note up there? It's like a second. The D.
Yeah, apparently this particular epistle came in two parts. Okay.
Well, I think they just attach. I think from the note, it makes it seem like this is a different letter, but in some way, the compilers attached it to this because it's connected in some way.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I have to say, usually, I mean, although this did add, this did end nicer than it started. Um, I mean, I can also imagine they were wanted to add something maybe that's a little less harsh to the rebuke that he was giving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to go for it?
Sure.
Okay. אהוביי, אחיי ורעיי, מגודל טרדתי, אשר הקיפו עליי יחד, וסבוני כמים, סבוני כמים, וכל היום וכל הלילה תמיד לא יחשו. Due to the immensity of my preoccupations, which altogether surround me and encircle me like water, all day and all night, never holding their peace. לא אוכל מילת פשע, מילת
Masa.
מסה, לאמור עם הספר כל אספר,
Asher Lavi.
I'm unable to unload the burden of writing down all that is in my heart. אך בקצרה באתי, כמזכיר ומחזיר על הראשונות בכלל. Briefly, however, I come as one who reminds and repeats earlier subjects in general. ובפרט אל המתנדבים בעם, and in particular to those of the people who offer themselves willingly in prayer beyond the customary measures. לעמוד על העבודה זאת תפילה, that they should stand steadfast in their divine service, i.e. prayer, בקול רם, and pray with a loud voice, להתחזק מאוד בכל עוז ותעצומות נגד כל מונע מבית ומבחוץ, strengthening themselves vigorously with all their might and power against any internal or external obstacle. ביד חזקה כמשמעו, with a strong hand plainly and simply. שהוא רצון ירעב אשר למעלה מן החוכמה והתבונה אשר נתן השם בהמה לדעת לעשות את כל אשר ציווה השם בהשכל ודעת. Bahema. Okay, that makes more sense. This service relates to the will of those who fear him. This transcends the wisdom and understanding with which God imbued them, so that they will know and do all that he commanded with intelligence and discernment. רק רצון פשוט ורוח נדיבה. There and they should have a simple will and a spirit of voluntary self-dedication. וכל איש אשר ידבנו ליבו לעבוד עבודה תמה, לעשות נחת רוח ליוצרו. In every man whose heart prompts him to serve a whole service, intending only to cause gratification to his maker. ועל זה נאמר כי עם קשה עורף הוא וסלחת. Of this super rational degree of will, it is written, for this is a stiff-necked people, and you should pardon them, or you should pardon, because they are stiff-necked people.
Right. So this is a Hasidic understanding of this idea of Am Kasher Oref, that there's a natural stubbornness in Israel, which in fact causes God to have pardon for us.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. כי הסליחה היא גם כן מלמעלה מן החוכמה, for pardon too transcends wisdom. So what does this note here? Just as a mortal's will flies free, untrammeled by his intellect, So too above, the divine source of pardon transcends supernal wisdom. Ki sha'alu lachokhma v'chule. Thus it is written, they ask wisdom, what should be the lot of the soul that sins? ומשה רבנו עליו השלום ביקש מידה כנגד מידה ודי למבין. So did Moses, our master, peace to him, invoke measure for measure and suffice this for the discerning. Interesting. So Moses pleaded that God grant forgiveness to the same extent that an individual repents with a simple will that transcends his understanding. He desires that men's repentance elicit and call down to this world the divine source of pardon, with which likewise transcends supernal wisdom.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, I'm sorry. He's separating slicha or mechila, pardon, from the rational understanding.
Right. So that I understand. He's saying that that similar to how in human beings there's a capacity to desire something that doesn't come from any rationality or intellect, or similarly God, I just don't understand why he means Moshe Rabbeinu asked midah keneged midah, and certainly not what he's saying dai lemaven. Obviously I'm not a maven.
I feel like it might be related to the parasha we just had, Vaitchanen.
Well, he's saying, I mean, Devarim Rabbah 11:9.
I wonder if that's
that might actually be Vaitchanan.
Because I feel like I've seen something about that, or like it reminds me of something.
Okay, I actually have to leave at the top of the hour, or I would say let's look up Devarim Rabbah 11:9. But we only have like 7 minutes, so let's try to finish this, and maybe we'll look up Devarim Rabbah before next time.
Sounds good. Okay, so ועוד זאת אדרוש ממעלתכם. Furthermore, I earnestly ask of my esteemed listeners, שלא להשליך דברי אחריכם אשר ערכתי שיח, להיות כל איש ישר והולך בתומו, כאשר עשה האלוקים את האדם ישר. Do not cast aside my words in which I have asked that every man be upright and walk with integrity, just as God made man upright. ולא לבקש חשבונות רבים, מעלילות מצעדי גבר ומחשבות אדם ותחבולותיו, nor to seek numerous calculations regarding the pretexts of man's steps and a person's thoughts and devices. כי זו מלאכת שמיים היא ולא מלאכת בשר ודם. מלאכת שמיים. For that is the work of heaven and not an occupation for flesh and blood. So don't overanalyze. ולהאמין באמונה שלמה במצוות חכמינו זיכרונם לברכה, להווה שפל רוח בפני כל אדם בכלל. Rather, everyone should believe with absolute faith in the precepts of our sages of blessed memory, and be humble of spirit before every man without exception. כי יציבה מילתא ותקין פתגמה, שכל אחד מתוקן מחברו. For it is a true statement and a correct proverb that every man becomes better through his fellow.
I'm very impressed with your reading of Aramaic. It's gotten a lot better.
Yeah. Now I just need to make sure that I actually understand what I'm saying. That's the next step. וכתיב, כל איש ישראל כאיש אחד חברים. Thus, too, it is written, all the men of Israel associated together like one man. כל ישראל ערבים זה לזה. Also. כמו שאיש אחד מחובר מאיברים רבים ובהפרדם נוגע בלב, כי ממנו תוצאות חיים. Just as one man is composed of many limbs, and when they become separated, this affects the heart. From it there issues life. אם כן, אנחנו היות כולנו כאיש אחד ממש, ממש תיכון העבודה בלב. Therefore, by our truly being all like one man, the service of God in the heart, and he's talking about prayer here, will be firmly established. ומכלל הן וכולי. And from the affirmative, you may infer the negative. ועל כן נאמר, ולעבדו שכם אחד דווקא. That is why it is said to serve him with one purpose, or literally with one part or one shoulder. Only when all Jews fully unite in this way can it be said that they serve him. So like shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, that's very weird because that Zephaniah 3:9 is talking about the Gentiles. It's interesting that he's talking about Jews here. Okay.
ועל כן אהובה ידידיי, נע ונע לטרוח בכל לב ונפש, לתקוע אהבת רעהו בליבו. Therefore, my beloved and dear ones, I beg again and again that each of you exert himself with all his heart and soul to firmly implant in his heart a love for his fellow Jew. ואיש את רעת רעהו אל תחשבו בלבבכם כתיב. And in the words of scripture, let none of you consider in your heart what is evil for your fellow. ולא תעלה על לב לעולם. Moreover, such a consideration should never arise in one's heart in the first place. ואם תעלה, and if it does arise, יעדף נא מליבו כעמדוף עשן, וכמו מחשבת עבודה זרה ממש. One should push it away from his heart as smoke is driven away, as if it were an actual idolatrous thought. כי גדולה לשון הרע כנגד עבודה זרה וגילוי עריות ושפיכות דמים. For to speak evil of another is as grave as idolatry and incest and bloodshed. He's really voicing the Chafetz Chaim here. ואם בדיבור כך כולי. And if this is so, speech, then surely thinking evil is even worse. Because it's higher.
Yeah, because it's spiritual evil.
וכבר נודע לכל חכם לב יתרון הכשר המחשבה על הדיבור. For all the wise of heart are aware of the greater impact on the soul of thought over speech, הן לטוב והן למוטב, whether for the good or for the better. והשם הטוב המברך את עמו בשלום ישים עליכם שלום וחיים עד העולם. May the good Lord who blesses his people with peace bestow peace and life upon you forevermore, כנפש אוהב נפשם מלב ונפש, as is the wish of him who loves you deeply from heart and soul.
Yeah. Interesting. Got it? You're supposed to pray for people. You're not supposed to think bad of people. You're supposed to think good things about people.
Right. I guess that's kind of related. Maybe that's kind of related to this idea that we were talking about seeing the punishment in a different way. Because just like God punishes you, and you can, like, if you look at it from a certain angle, you can discover something about it. The same is true for other people that you think they're hurting you. I mean, they are hurting you sometimes, but you can get there's an angle there that allows you to judge them rightly and also maybe improve one another.
Yep. Okay. Danka, thank you very much. I unfortunately do have to go, but we will continue this next week.